join me with a big round of applause, everyone, for Attorney Danielle Guari.
Good morning, Empowered Teen. I hope you all are having a great time so far, and I'm honored to be here presenting to you today. If I could go back and tell my younger self that I would be here, standing in front of a crowd this large, I would probably shriek with fear. Young Danielle didn't like to speak in front of crowds of people, but as I got older, I took a public speaking class at the University of Scranton, and from there on out, I realized that I can do this. I can speak in front of a crowd. That class helped me not only gain confidence in my speaking abilities, but also confidence in myself. I realized that as long as I had a plan for what I wanted to say, and I took the time to prepare, I was able to do it. Public speaking didn't have to be a scary task anymore, and it could be fun. I used the skills that I learned and my newfound confidence and became involved in leadership roles. Throughout the remainder of high school, college, and law school, I began to use those skills and become a leader. And today, I work as a prosecutor for the Lackawanna County DA's office, and that's a job that I have to use my communication skills at each and every day. As an attorney, my job is to advocate. I have to advocate to keep our community safe. I have to advocate to keep our community crime-free. And I have to advocate for our victims. And in order to be an effective advocate, I must be a strong and confident communicator. But being a confident communicator is not a skill that I need just to be a better lawyer. Being a confident communicator has helped me in my everyday life, in my relationships, and in my hobbies. We all have ideas, thoughts, or messages that we want to share with the world. Whether it's on a small scale, like a conversation with your friends, or on a larger scale, maybe in a college essay or at a job interview. You all have the ability to effectively communicate your ideas, thoughts, and messages confidently. As long as you have a message and you know who your audience is, and you take the time to prepare and practice, your communication can be persuasive and powerful. Throughout our presentation today, I hope you're able to gain some helpful tips and tricks on how you can all be confident communicators. All right, so to communicate means to share or exchange information, news, or ideas. And in order to communicate, let's talk about knowing our message. Your message is something that's specific to each scenario in which you are communicating. It may be a topic you're discussing, the information that you want to convey, or an idea that you want to persuade. Essentially, your message is the purpose behind communicating. And without a message, why communicate? When I'm determining my message, I often find it helpful to ask myself, what's the end goal? And when I'm asking what the end goal is, I mean, what do I want my audience to take away from my message and communication? If I know what I want the audience to take away, I'm able to work backwards and realize how I need to reach that goal effectively and confidently. I'll give you an example of my job as a prosecutor. So, in my job, we have jury trials, kind of like the ones that you'll see on television. And when I'm preparing for a trial, I ask myself, what's the end goal? And that end goal is to find the defendant guilty. I want those jurors, through my message, to understand how the facts of that case and the evidence show that the defendant is the person that committed the crime. Now let's talk about an example for you all. It might be getting into that dream college. And what do you want? What's your end goal there? Being accepted. You might need to write a college essay or participate in an interview. And knowing that you want that end goal of an acceptance letter, your message needs to be why you're the best fit for that school or that major, and how you could stand out among other applicants. Another example could be trying to convince your parents that you need a car. So our end goal is obviously for you to have your own car to drive around in. That message, when you're communicating it to your parents, is why getting a car will make their life easier. See how there are different messages for each type of scenario. All right, next let's talk about knowing your audience. Your audience is a person or a group of people that you want to understand and receive your message. And your audience plays a role in how you plan on delivering that message. Knowing who your audience is may change how you want to communicate. So while you're preparing, ask yourself, am I delivering my message to one person? Am I talking to a group? What do they know about me? What do they know about my message? And what are their expectations going to be? We'll go back to my example for my job. My audience in a jury trial is 12 people, 12 jurors. And I have to inform them about the facts and educate them about the law, because they don't know much about the law and they definitely don't know about the facts of the case. But if I take that same message, but I switch my audience to, say, my colleagues, they already know about the law. They might not know about the facts of my case, but they know about the law. So how I'm delivering my message changes based on who the audience is. We'll go back to the college example for you guys. In your essay, your audience is going to be, say, the admissions board, the admissions office. You want to make sure that your message, based on that audience, is how you're different from another applicant, how you can stand out, and why you're going to be a distinguished and great student for their college. And now on to the car example. Your parents are obviously the audience, and I think you probably all know what they would like to hear. You're going to be a responsible driver, you may take your siblings to and from school or practice, and that you're going to pay for your gas. See, again, these are all ways that knowing our audience changes the way we deliver our message. All right, now that we have our two main points of knowing our message and knowing our audience, let's talk a little bit how we communicate that. It's going to be through preparation and delivery. First, when it comes to preparation, it would be no surprise for me to say that there's no such thing as over-preparation. And that's because the more organized you are, the more confident you'll be. All right, first, when we're trying to prepare, let's talk about creating an outline of your ideas and your topics. The way that you can do this is start by bullet pointing all of the important information that you'll plan on talking about. Once you have your message outlined, you're able to use those points to structure your message, and then it'll help you be able to recall what you want to talk about when you're presenting or communicating. Having those quick points at the top of your head will be really helpful. Now, sometimes when you plan on communicating, you might need to research your topic a little bit more or educate yourself. And obviously, if that's the case, make sure you put the time in that you need to in order to be very well versed on that topic. The more you know, the more confident you will be. And then finally, we have to practice. There are many ways and many different forms of practice. You can videotape yourself, practice in front of the mirror, or practice with a friend or family member. Any type of practice is helpful so you can improve your communication prior to delivering that final message. It will build your confidence in your overall presentation and learn how you communicate best. I know there are probably some of you out there that don't really like to videotape yourself or hear yourself back on video. I know I don't. But I've used this many times, and it's really, really been a valuable tool in practicing my communication. Doing so has helped me realize maybe the way I'm explaining something makes sense in my head, but once I say it out loud, it doesn't make that much sense. So I need to change the way that I'm saying it. Or it makes me realize the message isn't flowing as I think it should be, so I need to restructure it. It really is a helpful tool to be able to prepare your final message in the best way possible. Another great way is to practice with a friend or a family member. Having that real life audience rips off the Band-Aid for your nerves, first of all. And then you can get some feedback. That audience member doesn't really know what you're talking about, so they can bounce some ideas back and forth with you. I can't tell you how many times I've done this with my sister and my husband, and they have given me such great feedback. So I'm able to make my final communication as best as it can be. And now let's talk a little bit about delivery. Obviously, there are many styles for communicating, and as you start to communicate more, you'll learn which way works best for you. I obviously am standing in front of the podium, and I think that has to do with my job. In court, we're very composed. I can't be too active, so this is where I'm comfortable. But maybe it works better for you to walk around. All different ways. Whatever works best for you and makes you the most comfortable is how I suggest you start. Now, let's talk a little bit about our tone, your speaking pace, your word choice, and your voice volume. This is all important. We want to make sure we're talking slowly, assertively, loud enough so people can hear. And especially for teens, we want to make sure we're talking without using some slang or trendy phrases or things like that. When you're going into that college interview, you want to use full sentences and be as professional as possible. But obviously, if you're speaking to a friend, that audience makes a difference for how we're talking to each other. It's a totally different conversation then, right? Now, let's talk a little bit about nonverbal communication. It's about eye contact, open posture, tall posture, body language, and gestures. There are certain things that you may want to try and avoid, like fidgeting with a pen or pulling at your clothes. You don't want to really cross your arms or turn your back to people when you're presenting. So all things like that go into what the audience will notice. They're going to pay attention to these things, so you want to make sure that they're not distracted by them. And then finally, another important part of delivery is active listening. During your communication, there may come a time in which you are engaging in back and forth. And we want to make sure when that comes about, we're paying attention to what the other person is saying. So we're hearing what they have to say, comprehending, and then engaging with them. So in my profession, what we call active listening is looping. So that's when someone answers a question, and when they give us their response, when we say something back to them, we take the phrase of what they're saying, and then we add something to it. So an example of this is the phrase, "and then the car drove past me." My response to that, to practice active listening and looping, would be, after the car drove past you, what happened next? This helps to acknowledge what the person is saying, and then you're able to create that full circle thought and create a great back-to-back communication. All right. Now that you guys have had the chance to hear from me, and also Christina from this morning's session about confident communication, let's try and break out into some groups and work on communicating confidently. So the first activity we have, I'm calling it reverse Pictionary, because instead of drawing, you already have the picture, all right? So the way it works is each person, you're going to work in pairs. The person next to you should have a different set of photos. You want to make sure that you're not sharing what your photos look like, so then you can try and describe the photos to each other. So take a minute if you need to move over, like we're separated in three, so the two at each end have opposite photos, or should have opposite photos. Try and work with each other. Yeah, if you need help or papers, let us know. So the goal of this is to describe what that photo is without actually saying the word, right? So you have the keyword at the bottom there, And then you're going to describe that using your communication skills, all right? So if you have any questions, myself, all of the room advisors are here, and as well as Christina. So take some time, break out, and describe those to you. If you need us, flag us down. Give like, I'm okay, thank you. Are we doing okay on time? Okay. All right, great.
We've got extras. I think we're
Perfect. Looks like everyone's pairing up. Hello? All right, everyone, listen up. Can you hear me? All right. How did we do? Good. We're trying to use our communication skills, right? To describe what's in the picture. Hopefully, you were able to use some tips and tricks from all of the presentations today in this activity. All right, now let's move on to the second activity. This one's called In So Many Words. All right, so if I were to ask you how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you would just tell me how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? You go to the kitchen, you take out your supplies, you grab a plate, knife, bread, peanut butter and jelly. You take the 2 pieces of bread, you place them on the plate. You take a knife, spread the peanut butter on 1 piece of bread. You take the knife, spread the jelly on the other piece of bread, and then you put the 2 pieces of bread together, slice the sandwich in half, right? That's how you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But that's a lot of words, right? Just to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So, in this activity, you have a few questions. You're going to take some time, answer those questions. You could start with the first one, and see how many words it takes you to answer that question. And then from there, try and decrease the amount of words by 5. And then 5 more. And then 5 more. And see how long it takes you to get to the answer to that question. Right? Can't we say for this, to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, it's bread, peanut butter, jelly, together? Right? That's the point. That's the message. So, see how many words we started with and what we ended with, and we're a lot clearer and more concise. All right, so you have a few questions. Work together on your own, share it with your next door neighbor, and see how you do. If you need us again, we're here to help. All right? Thank you. How did we do? Were we able to take our total word count and decrease it? Hopefully this is a helpful activity for you guys moving forward, no matter what kind of message you have or what your communication may be. Thank you guys so much for listening to me. It was an honor to be here today. I love any chance I get to be working with the Scranton Chamber, so I appreciate your attention. If you have any questions, we're almost at the end, but I'd be happy to take them or meet you outside and answer any questions you may have, all right? Thank you so much.